Hello and welcome to Euronews Tonight. I'm Angela Barnes. Here's our top stories. Trying to put a name to the faces of the 27 people, including 4 children, who drowned in the English Channel on Wednesday night, as police open a criminal investigation into the incident. Stopping the blame game. The UK and France vow to do more to prevent illegal crossings, as Emmanuel Macron says it's not just a French problem. Time for a booster. The EU proposes a 9-month acceptance period for COVID vaccines as a new wave of infections sweeps across Europe. And Pfizer is authorised for children. The European Medicines Agency approves the jab for 5 to 11-year-olds, offering millions more protection from COVID-19. French authorities have begun the task of identifying the 27 people, including 4 children who drowned trying to cross the English Channel on Wednesday night. There are at least 1 pregnant woman among the dead, who are believed to be mostly Kurds in Iraq or Iran. 1 Iraqi and 1 Somalian man who were rescued are being treated in hospital. A criminal investigation has been opened into the incident. 4 men are suspected of having direct involvement. But attempted crossings from Calais is nothing new, French police say. The deaths were a dreaded but expected tragedy.
This is a dramatic scenario. First of all, it was unfortunately something that could have been foreseen. A scenario of horror that we'd feared and dreaded occurred yesterday. It is a very busy place of passage at the commercial level. Boats continuing to pass between France and Great Britain, with a multitude of makeshift boats embarking to try their luck, and are confronted by these large boats and perhaps by the sea, that is sometimes out of control.
Well, Gregoire Laurie joins me now live from Calais. Gregoire, this is a huge number of people to have died trying to cross the Channel. Is the feeling in Calais that something like this was expected?
Indeed, it was expected. NGOs, associations working closely with the migrants expected that such a tragedy could happen. It is not new to see people trying to reach the United Kingdom through boats. There has been a change of strategy by smugglers in the recent month, and so they expected that such a tragedy would happen. For them, it is something not unexpected, and actually they are quite angry towards authorities because they have raised the alarm a month ago saying that this would happen. And so for them, it is of course sadness that we can feel here when we talk to NGOs or associations working with the migrants.
And Gregoire, record numbers of attempts to cross from France to the UK this year. What's behind the rise and what's being done to try and counter it?
It is despair, first of all, that push migrants to try to reach the United Kingdom. This is the same motto repeated by NGOs and associations. And I talked earlier with the mayor of Sangatte, who told us that there are no more limits for the smugglers, and that's something that has changed. He raised the alarm in August 2019, saying that they've first seen the first boats trying to reach the United Kingdom. And some month ago, smugglers, human traffickers were waiting for good weather to try to push migrants to reach the United Kingdom. And now it is no more the case. Now, whatever the weather is, the smugglers are pushing migrants on dinghies, on boats. And that's one thing that has changed. So what France can do, the government said that they would provide more coast guards, more drones, more cameras, try to avoid migrants to try to get on boats. But the answer will be also Europeans and ministers for migration, French ministers, Belgian ministers, Dutch ministers, British ministers should gather with the European Commission on Sunday in Calais to try to find out a European solution to this tragedy.
Gregoire Laurie in Calais there. Thank you very much for that update. The UK and France have both blamed each other for not doing enough to prevent not only this tragedy, but also the number of people trying to cross the Channel. UK Home Secretary Priti Patel told the House of Commons that London had offered to put British officers on the northern coast of France to secure the area and stop vulnerable people risking their lives. But that the offer was rejected by Paris, she said. Well, Patel also said there are no quick fixes to the long-standing challenge.
What happened yesterday was a dreadful shock. It was not a surprise, but it is also a reminder of how vulnerable people are put at peril when in the hands of criminal gangs. This is about addressing long-term pull factors, smashing the criminal gangs that treat human beings as cargo, and tackling supply chains. This requires a coordinated international effort. And I've been in constant contact with my counterparts from France, Poland, Austria, Belgium, Italy and Greece, to name just a few.
French President Emmanuel Macron has called for stronger cooperation among European countries, saying that it isn't just a French problem.
We need to strengthen cooperation with Belgium, the Netherlands, Germany, but also the British and the Commission. This is the decision that has been taken to better prevent arrivals on French soil and to better integrate the British in the prevention of these flows by dismantling the networks of smugglers. We have dismantled several dozen of them in the last few weeks, and I salute the mobilisation of our prefects in the region and our internal security forces. But we need a stronger European cooperation.
Well, for more on this now, our reporter Victoria Smith is in London for us. Victoria, good to see you there. Now, the UK and France proposing to do more, but blaming each other on the number of people trying to cross the Channel. So what are their plans for working together this time?
Very much up in the air, sadly. Obviously, everyone's horrified by what happened in the Channel last night. Boris Johnson has said he's shocked and appalled. He said that here at Westminster. And he's urging France to do more. But for his part, President Macron says, stop making this a political issue. Of course, it is a political issue in so much as the UK has offered France, for example, some 54 billion euros to help stop the crossings taking place from French soil, from French beaches. There are reports that French police have stood by and watched the boats take off, cast away. Also, of course, it's a political issue because there has been some success in preventing other kinds of crossings. We used to see the migrants coming over on trucks and trains, and now they're turning to boats because that's what the people smugglers are offering, and that's where the problem remains. Just to give you a figure on that, Angela, some 26,000 migrants have managed to cross the Channel this year. Only 5 have been returned.
Victoria, it's a shocking figure, but Priti Patel and the government have been heavily criticised, haven't they, for the handling of the migrant crisis over the years. Would you say, or is it felt that this now is a turning point?
Well, let's see. The critics are saying that the UK needs to look at its policies again. It needs to look at the politics and find perhaps alternative, safe routes for those who are desperately needing to seek asylum. Others, of course, point to Brexit. They say the reason for the standoff, if you like, between France and Britain is that Brexit's got in the way. Britain now has to negotiate individually with each European country. That didn't used to be the case, and there could be some difficulties. There are some difficulties because of that. You can see it in the figures. Far fewer people being returned this year than they were last year when Britain was still following EU rules. And still, of course, the migrants come in record numbers. They are setting off. They're paying people traffickers, people smugglers, £3,000 each to get into an overcrowded inflatable boat and to take their chances on the world's busiest shipping route just as winter begins to strike.
Victoria, thank you very much for that update. Well, staying on this now, Bruno Bonnell, an MP representing Macron's En Marche movement, joins us now to discuss it further. Thank you very much for joining us this evening on the show. Now, you've been talking about this today, I've seen a lot, and of course, the UK has offered to help police the French border. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's a good idea? Because there are concerns, aren't there, in Paris over national sovereignty?
You know, anything that could help to resolve this issue in the short term is good to take, but it's just the peak of the iceberg. I think that behind this agreement for common or joint patrolling, there is a much bigger picture to consider. And to be honest with you, it is very disappointing to see that people keep pointing fingers on both sides of the channel, saying, "Oh, the French are not doing their job," or "the UK should change their labor law." I mean, we just have to understand that we're facing a massive migrant waves, and this one is going to grow more and more. It's a never-ending story. So we need to coordinate action, to join forces against the gangs, against the smugglers at the EU plus UK level, and not just make like little details here and there, pretending it will solve the problem.
Bruno, let's talk about the smugglers. What needs to be done to really stop these illegal crossings? Because nothing really is working so far, has it?
Well, what needs to be done is really to open a real war against them, meaning that dismantling the networks, because they capture the attention of those people on their lands, right? In Africa sometime, or in other territories. And they build the dream of the UK promised land for them to find jobs and money. And they take these people and they make them pay a very significant amount of money. So at the end of the day, I think that this is intelligence and forces against the gangs that we need to pursue.
Okay, well, that was Bruno Bonnell. One more question for you as well. The UK and France have agreed, haven't they, to step up their efforts, but they've also been criticising each other over their efforts. Could this be a turning point in the way Paris and London treat these people?
Well, I think it could be a turning point for many, many things. And if it could be a base for a much bigger trust in the future between the two territories, it would be really something that'd be a good conclusion of this tragedy. Again, we need to join forces. We are allies, we are friends, and we need to understand that nobody is to be blamed here, but everybody has to be on board for those people not to die anymore.
Bruno Bonnell, thank you very much for joining us and for your insight there.
Thank you.
Well, stay with us on the programme. Still to come, a clampdown on political ads. The European Commission outlines plans to make them more transparent. Welcome back to the programme. Germany has become the 5th European country to officially pass 100,000 coronavirus-related deaths. Public health officials say 351 people have died with the virus in the last 24 hours. Hospitals have warned that few intensive care beds remain available. On Thursday, almost 4,000 were occupied by COVID-19 patients, forcing the transfer of some German patients abroad for treatment. The EU's drugs regulator has given the green light for Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine to be used in children aged 5 to 11. The European Medicines Agency estimates that the jab is over 90% effective in preventing symptoms in young children. Austria, currently under lockdown due to a spike in cases, has already started vaccinations among this age range. The European Commission has updated its travel advice for member states, including fresh guidelines for the coronavirus pass, which is used for cross-border travel. It recommends the certificate should be valid for 9 months after the first full vaccination. Research suggests vaccine protection wanes after 6 months, and the EMA said an additional 3 months may be needed to ensure national jab campaigns can adjust and citizens are able to access booster shots. Well, let's head to Brussels to speak to Shona Murray for more on this. Shona, good to see you there. So what other proposals is the EU suggesting to try and counter the fourth wave gripping the bloc? And are the 27 member states likely to come on board?
Well, this relates specifically just to travel within the European Union, because there's a feeling that nobody wants to go back to the situation we were in last year, where some member states were closing their borders or that there was only essential travel. So this facilitates it in the way that it extends the COVID pass until at least the end of next summer. And also now people can get their booster shots added onto their COVID cert. The rule essentially is that, as you mentioned there, vaccines start to wane after 6 months. So it gives a person an extra 3 months to get their booster shot. So essentially you get a booster shot within 9 months of your second vaccine or your full vaccination. And this means that you can travel onwards. It'll essentially prevent people from travelling unless they've been fully vaccinated or have a negative PCR test. Now, nothing really changes for the unvaccinated in terms of travel, other than they will likely have to quarantine in places and also continue to have a PCR test, because this really relates to travel. And other restrictions around unvaccinated are for the member states themselves. This is an EU-wide plan or proposal just to allow travel within the bloc.
And Shona, vaccination itself, though, is still a huge issue for the EU, isn't it? Because, well, Ursula von der Leyen saying that just a quarter of adults are vaccinated, is still not double jabbed. Could we see more restrictions being put on those that are unvaccinated?
Certainly within the member states. When it comes to these issues, the EU doesn't have competence, so it can't talk about how unvaccinated people are treated. The EU only deals with the single market and the right to freedom of travel. But we have seen, and in Austria initially, the restrictions were placed on the unvaccinated. Now it's on everyone because the vaccination rates are so low there, 65%. Germany, they're mulling it over that it should be unvaccinated people should have very limited access to facilities. And I think, as Ursula von der Leyen was saying, there is huge divergence within the EU around countries' vaccination rates. Ireland, Malta, Denmark, they have around 92, 93% of the adult population vaccinated, yet still are under pressure when it comes to ICUs, even though there's a small percentage of those people are in hospitals and in ICUs. But countries like Bulgaria have less than 30%, around 28% of people vaccinated. So in those situations, it's very unlikely that you see a big uptake on booster jabs. So obviously this issue about unvaccinated versus vaccinated will continue apace, given the next few months and given how contagious and infectious the Delta variant is.
Shona Murray, our correspondent in Brussels, thank you very much. Now, the European Commission has unveiled plans to make political advertising more transparent. Tech giants and other online platforms will be forced to clearly label paid political adverts or face hefty fines. They'll also be barred from using personal data to target voters. Shandor Girosh reports.
Brussels is clamping down on political ads. The European Commission has presented plans to force online platforms like Facebook to clearly label paid political advertising or face fines. Online advertising is becoming an unchecked race of dirty methods, according to the EU.
Once this law is adopted, the users will be able to clearly distinguish the ads from organic content, because paid content will be clearly labelled. Citizens will be able to know why they are seeing an ad, who paid for it, what data were used to target them.
Big Tech would have to reveal what data was used and refrain from using sensitive data to target people with political ads. Some criticize the initiative as a dangerous move which would create a European Ministry of Truth. This is not the case in the current plans, according to one expert.
There is no concrete mechanism being proposed that would endanger the freedom of speech, that would be a very systematic, let's say, fact checker done by the authorities themselves. But I think what we will end up with is some sort of soft mechanism, soft co-regulation also between the authorities and the platforms to ensure that the content is not misleading, is not manipulative, and it is transparent as regards who posted there.
The rules on political ads must be approved by MEPs and EU leaders and are likely to enter into force by 2024. The plan is part of a larger clampdown in big tech to protect democracy and comes just weeks after fresh revelations of wrongdoings reported by Facebook whistleblower Frances Haugen.
Stay with us. After the break, we'll be looking at Europe's first retirement home for elephants. Welcome back to the programme. Now, France has opened Europe's first retirement home for elephants. Elephant Haven is hoping to house wild animals from zoos and circuses following a ban on their use in shows in some European countries. Rebecca Daunt reports.
In the heart of Limousin, France, a sparsely populated agricultural region famous for its prime cattle, lies a haven for another gentle giant. On a plot of 29 hectares, these barns have been purposely built to house elephants through their golden years. And 52-year-old Gandhi is the centre's very first resident.
It's the first and only sanctuary for elephants here in Europe. One of the reasons for this is that sometimes there's a lot of old elephants in zoos that fight with each other, and it's always difficult to find a place for just one old elephant. Also, there are a lot of countries that have banned wild animals in circuses. But where are you going to put these animals?
At least 20 European countries, including Greece, France and Austria, have banned the use of wild animals in circuses and live shows. Costing a grand total of €1 million, this project was made possible thanks to generous donations made by NGOs such as the Brigitte Bardot Foundation.
We leave you now with a no comment from Stockholm, where an architecture museum is keeping up tradition by holding its annual gingerbread competition. Thanks for watching Euronews Tonight.
Och det är ju toppen. Men jag gillade ju.
Ja, okej.